everyone. Welcome to the Steve Maxwell Drums Podcast. Don't forget to check us out on our website at www.maxwelldrums.com and then our reverb stores at Steve Maxwell Drums-Chicago and Steve Maxwell Drums-New York. We also have social media, 2 Instagram accounts, at Maxwell Drum Shop Chicagoland and then at Maxwell Drum Shop. And then also on Facebook, Steve Maxwell and Steve Maxwell Drum Shop. And then, of course, check us out on Twitter at Maxwell Drum Shop. We will interview players, collectors, drum and cymbal builders, and also teachers about all things percussion. And you can go to YouTube if you want to see the video. We'll have pictures of drum shops, of drum sets, badges, cymbals, all kinds of fun stuff. So let's get started. We hope you enjoy it. All right, 3, 2, 1. So, Jason Patera here with Steve Maxwell Jr., and this is the 4th Maxwell Drums podcast that we're doing here. Jason is a local teacher, musician, drummer that I've had a lot of history with, and he's the head of school at the Chicago Academy for the Arts, where I went and had a really, really awesome experience at, I would say. So yeah, we're just gonna talk about music, about drums, about kind of like where we came from and musical influences, what we're doing now, all this fun stuff. So how you doing, Jason?
I'm fantastic. I am so happy to be here. I am happy to see you. I'm happy to see the shop, and the thought of just hanging out and talking about drums with one of my favorite students ever, and I mean that sincerely. And I hope we get back and talk about that time. It seems to me the best way to spend some time on a Saturday afternoon. So thanks for having me here.
Yeah. It's I've been looking forward to this for a while. I'm so glad you were able to make it out. Yeah. So I think we can start with maybe just a little bit about you and kind of your history. Maybe let's start with tell me about how you got into music.
Yeah.
At all, where you grew up, how you got into music, first drum set, all that fun stuff.
Oh my God, yeah, this is, I grew up in Berwyn, Illinois. Actually, I grew up in Stickney, which is a tiny little town right outside of Berwyn. My dad was a singer. He worked in the stockyards during the day. Later on, he was a machinist, but he probably should have been a professional singer. He had an incredible voice. He knew hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tunes, and to him, music was super important. And my mother loved music too. My mother loved the big bands of the 30s and 40s. She loved Benny Goodman and all that. So there was music in the house all the time. And and my brother and sister, who were a little bit older than me, they're 10 and 12 years older than I am. So they were listening to the popular music of the day, and my parents were listening to Benny Goodman and Frank Sinatra and that kind of stuff. And I remember being a little kid right when MTV first came out, and my brother and sister would fight about they wanted to watch MTV, and I'll never forget the impression it made on me. There was a Brian Setzer band, I think it was called the Alley Cats, and they had this tune, this rockabilly tune, and at the end the drummer stood up on the drum set and hit the snare drum twice and jumped down, and I thought, maybe I was 5 or 6 years old, and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And Kiss started having these videos, and I remember that the drummer had 4 bass drums, and I remember thinking, that guy must be so awesome because he's got 4 bass drums. And so the early MTV stuff really got me excited about music. And I don't remember why I wanted a drum set, but I do remember one day my dad came home and said, "Hey, I need you to get this thing out of my truck for me." And I go into the truck and there's a drum kit right there. It was a 4-piece Slingerland drum kit, blue sparkle on it.
So your first kit was a Slingerland?
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
And it was just, and maybe I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, and I set it up and banged on it. And I loved having it, but I didn't know what to do. And so I got discouraged pretty early on, because whatever I tried to do, I would just bang on the thing, and it didn't sound like what was happening on MTV. But everything changed in 3rd grade. The band director brought all the cool kids around to each of the grades and had the cool kids show off different instruments. And there was this guy, he was maybe 5 years older than me. I guess I was in 3rd grade, he was in 8th grade, named Dave Melka. And even in 8th grade, he was a prodigious drummer, and he played a little snare drum thing, and I thought, I'm joining band. That's what I'm doing. I'm joining band. I went home, told my parents I'm joining band at school, and I got the snare drum, and then I just started playing in band all the time, and it was drums. But from pretty much then on, my whole life was all about
So which
drums.
high school did you go to?
I went to Morton West High School in Berwyn, but I mean, I kind of went there, but by the time I was a sophomore, I started ditching school a lot
Sure.
to go to where you went to high school, the Chicago Academy for the Arts.
Yeah. That's going to be a little bit of a focus of this this one. Yeah, it's my high school experience, and yeah, the reason that we know each other so well is because Jason taught me a lot. I mean, you were well, I'll go into more about my experience at the academy, but I can just say for starters, like musically, Jason's like a really, really fantastic, gifted teacher, and really was able to inspire a lot of people to get into jazz music. We haven't talked about jazz too much yet, but yeah, let's continue about you and talk about So I know that about you, that you, when you were younger, jazz wasn't something that you were introduced to at a young age.
No, it wasn't. I mean, my dad sang my dad sang Frank Sinatra all the time.
So yeah, and actually, because I didn't know your dad was a singer.
And
at least I don't remember. You probably told me before, but I don't remember that.
Yeah, he was a great singer. He could have done it professionally, but he never did. But I thought jazz was Frank Sinatra.
Sure.
And now I understand how cool Frank Sinatra was. I get that now. But when you're in 8th grade,
sure,
like I didn't think that was cool.
In like the 80s and 90s, yeah.
Yeah, I thought Van Halen was cool. You know, I thought, who's this crooner singing these silly songs? And I thought that's what jazz was. And so I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I was into hard rock and heavy metal. And I had rock bands and metal bands, and I was interested in playing as loud and as fast as I possibly could.
What was the first band that you were a part of?
Well, my buddy Brian, we must have been in 6th grade, and one day my buddy Brian, his dad pulled out a Gibson guitar and plugged it in this Fender amp he had. I'll never forget this moment. And he turned on the amp and he started strumming the chords to the classic rock tune. Well, we call it classic rock now. Can't You See? And he started singing, Can't You See? And I was transfixed what this guy was making happen with his hands. And Brian was learning guitar from his dad. And I said, we got to start a band like right now. And so Brian comes over with his guitar, and we just started jamming at my house all the time.
Nice.
It took us a long time to find a bass player.
That's a recurrent theme, I think, in many a drummer's life.
Eventually, we found a bass player, and the band had several evolutions, but it was me and Brian were the core of it for a long time, through high school, even after high school, after college, and even every once in a while we still get together and play. And I'll say this. I have the big fancy degree from the big fancy school.
Right.
But
we'll go into that later. Yeah.
Brian is one of the best musicians I've ever met in my life.
He's still playing music?
Oh my God, he still plays, and he is outstanding.
Nice.
Brian, I'm gonna make you listen to this later, and I want you to know I mean every word. He is just one of the most inspiring people I've ever listened to, and watching him mature as a musician has really influenced my own teaching. So when we get into teaching, I want to talk about him and what it was like to growing up to next to somebody who had great ears right from the first day.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's an interesting point, how there are so many different styles of music in this country. I mean, it's almost too much. It's if you include everything, because there's like traditional European styles of music, there's traditional like Latin folkloric African rhythms, and then you have all the genres that grew up here in America.
Yeah.
And then it's just, there's so much going on, and then there's all these different education, and it's funny to me sometimes how the education sector has kind of divided up And it's at least in college, it's like jazz classical.
Oh yeah,
And then
jazz classical. Jazz classical.
Some places have more, but Latin jazz, but it's and one's maybe a little more of an improvised style, whereas one is some reading off music. But when it comes to the ear, like playing by ear, yeah, there's really something to be said for that. I know a lot of musicians who maybe like didn't finish school or aren't the best readers, but they can just they hear it and just play the most wonderful things and just fit in just about anywhere.
Well, I mean, check this out. If it's cool, I just want to jump to this right now, because when if you're in 5th grade and you tell mom and dad you want to play the violin, mom and dad, they get you a violin, and the first thing they do, probably before you ever push the bow across the strings, there's a teacher. And the first time you do anything, there's a teacher saying, do this, hold it this way, everything. And right from that day, you're doing it under guidance. And that means a lot of good things. It probably means you have good technique. It probably means you learn how to read. It probably means you learn how to practice. And it probably means you're organized. But I look at my buddy Brian, and his dad handed him a guitar one day. And he picked it up, and the will to play the thing was so strong that he was just going to figure out how to make it make sound. And he didn't have a teacher right away. He had his dad, and his dad showed him a couple things. But when Brian wanted to learn how to play music, he wasn't reading notes off of a page, and he wasn't being compliant with some teacher. He was listening to something that deeply moved him, and he was using his ears to figure out how to get his hands to do what his ears fell in love with. And when you engage with music that way, you become a listener.
Yeah, right on.
That's your whole orientation to the music, is listening. And I'll never forget that. And that's why in 5th grade, in 9th grade, when we were 22, that's why he's always been one of the best musicians I know, because his whole relationship to music is listening.
Right, maybe he doesn't know it as many 2/5 licks or...
Oh, well, he does now because he heard them, but sure. I mean, I had teachers, and so my orientation to music was visual, was reading it off the page. Show me the page. Give me the page and I'll play it. And it took me a long time to ever feel comfortable improvising.
Right.
Yeah, I've always been a great reader, and that's helped. So I've gotten some great gigs out of that. But I've always really admired the musician who the relationship with music is like a native relationship. That their initial relationship is a hearing one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfectly said, I think. So when you started and you were doing stuff in high school, did you do a lot of mallets, or was it? It was band stuff. So just out of curiosity, was it more snare drum, bass drum, or?
I had sort of 2 tracks in my life, and then a third one popped up later. My first love was the drum set.
Sure.
That's like probably you were the same way. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to have long hair. I wanted to be in a rock band. I wanted to play in front of a big crowd. But I joined band in school, and I was a good kid. At least then I was a good kid.
Sure.
Later I was not a good kid.
Perfectly natural. Everyone has a phase.
I did the lessons, and I had this great teacher starting in 3rd or 4th or 5th grade. Our band director was amazing, Lisa Keener, and my first drum teacher, Steve Przicki. And I fell in love with the learning, the notes on the page and decoding what all that meant. And so my drum teacher, Steve, he was not going to let me just play the set. He had a marimba in his basement, and he had me learning that. So Saturday mornings, my mom would drive me over, and we'd have the drum set part, and then we'd go over to the marimba part. And in 8th grade, I was lobbying my parents for a new drum set, and they thought I should get a marimba.
Yeah.
And so I had, what 8th graders got like a 4.5 octave Yamaha graduated keys Acoustalon marimba? Well, I did.
That's very cool.
So I took marimba really seriously for a long time too.
And that probably really helped you when you were looking for college, auditions.
I think it did. By the time I didn't want to go to college, I was going to be a rock star.
Sure.
I pretended occasionally to say some things about college. It wasn't until
so to appease the parents.
well, you know what? My parents though,
and the teachers.
My parents were super working class people. My dad, if I wanted to go to college, cool. If I want to go get a job, cool. If I want to go on the road with a band, cool. My parents were not. They were not conditioned to believe that the only path to a successful future was in college.
That's interesting. And that's actually, that's smart. Yeah, because it's not the only thing. College is very expensive.
Yeah, it was.
And you have to, I tell people, like, if you're going to go to college, especially for music, you really have to have a very specific plan a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's expensive. And I mean, unless if you're lucky enough to be able to have your college paid for or something like that, then okay, maybe go have fun. You can figure some stuff out later. But once you end the college, those bills start coming in. And
Yeah.
But anyways.
So my parents are super supportive of that. And I didn't go to a school that was classically oriented, so I could read great, and I had a great sense of melody and all of that stuff. But and I'm glad that I had it, but I was fortunate to have access to a school that wasn't so myopic in thinking about who they would take, that I didn't need to have the traditional conventional skills. Although I had them, I'm happy that I have them.
Nice. Look, Jason. Yeah, it's finally.
Yeah, your lava lamp is going.
Lava lamp. And for everyone listening, we have a lava lamp here, and I turned it on 2.5 hours ago, and it's just now starting to. I don't know what's wrong with this thing, but
it's teaching us patience right now.
Absolutely. So it's a kind of a Zen kind of vibe going on. By the very end of it, I imagine it'll be bubbling nicely. But so yeah, back when you were in high school, what was your first experience with the Chicago Academy for the Arts? I don't even know this. I know a little bit about this, but how did you? Because I think Pamela Jordan, she told me a little bit about you and kind of what your history with the school is. But yeah, I'd like to hear it from you.
I am so extraordinarily lucky of what happened to me. So I had this job at a music shop, a family-run business.
What was it called?
It was called DJ's Music.
And where was it?
It was in Berwyn. They started off in Cicero, then they were in Berwyn. Family-run place, and I had begged them for a job.
Some of our listeners might even know that place. I mean, we got a lot of customers.
It was the Hagedorn family. Al Hagedorn, or Pops, was the father, and then Danny, Johnny, and Mike were the kids who ran the business. And I worked for Dan and John. I begged them for a job. I worked at this music shop. And the day I turned 16, I got my driver's license right when I turned 16. The day I get my driver's license, I go into work. I'm so excited. Guys, look, I got my license. And I'm feeling like I'm an adult now, right?
Sure.
And I immediately, remember how I told you I became a bad kid? Here's when I was starting to be a bad kid. I told all of these lies. And I lied to them and told them I had car insurance. I lied to them and told them I could drive a truck. I lied to them and told them I knew my way around downtown. And they said, well, great, you're going on a delivery. And they had this van filled with music gear.
Oh, no.
And they sent me, they said,
scared now.
You're going to this weird high school downtown. It's a performing and visual arts high school called the Chicago Academy for the Arts. And they just bought all this gear. You're going to go deliver it.
All right.
And it's the middle of February 1992. I pull up to this school. And I must have been ditching school.
So what was the year again?
92.
92. So this is, I guess I can never remember when I was at the academy, but I guess that would have been 2000, right? So this is 8 years before I had ever set out. Yeah. Almost 10 years, because it was actually, wow.
Yeah, so, I was still a kid myself. and I walked into that school, and I must have been ditching my own school because I went to this high school and there were kids there. So
Sure.
I was probably ditching school that day and going to work. And I walk into this high school, and I could not believe it was for real. That right there in the stairwell, there's like Shakespeare being rehearsed. And there was a jazz jam session happening in the lobby, and there were these dancers bursting out into spontaneous choreography all over the place. And I immediately thought, this is way cooler than my high school.
That's exactly what I thought the first time.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And it never occurred to me to go there. Kids from my neighborhood didn't go to private school. I wouldn't have known what a private school was. And so I just did in my mind what I thought I had to do, which was kind of stop going to my regular high school and just show up at the academy. And I would show up, and the woman who was the head of the school at the time, well, there was Frank, who was the head of the school, and Pam Jordan, who was the principal. They let me hang out. They let me be something of an intern. They pretended to see something in me. And they said, we're going to give you stuff to do. You could set up this recording gear. We need to have a drummer for this show. Maybe you can help run sound for this thing. We need copies made of this other thing. And pretty soon I'm going there every day. And I'm kind of like an intern.
So how did you manage to do that and then keep your grades up at your school? Because
I don't know.
Just kind of juggling and...
I think I was good at gaming the system. I'm going to stop short of saying I was smart. Other people told me I was smart. I just thought I was resourceful. I was resourceful.
Sure.
I could figure out what's the bare minimum I can do to like keep everybody to just not pay any attention to me. And I got great grades, but I suspect the standards were low, and I gamed the system. And I wasn't getting caught for any of the bad stuff I was doing, so people just let me alone.
Sure.
And I'd go to the academy, and I'd hang out, and I did this for years. Now,
almost seems like a Ferris Bueller type situation.
Oh my God, yeah. And now I'm the head of the school. I would never let 16-year-old version of me just loiter around the school. Nah.
Sure.
I'd be like, nah, kid, get lost. Yeah. Get lost. And eventually the woman who was the principal sat me down. She made me go to college. And she said, when you graduate, you're going to come back here and teach. And that's exactly what happened. It was just a few days after graduation, and then I'm in front of a classroom.
That's really interesting. You had told me little bits of the story, but I've never heard it so, I don't know, succinctly. Yeah, very, very interesting.
It's the only place I've ever worked now. I've been there for the last 22 years. And I've learned. I was a teacher, then I was head of the music department, then I was the assistant principal, and I've been the head of the school for the last 4 years. You stick around long enough, eventually they just put you in charge. Like, all right, it's yours now. Here are the keys. Here's the alarm code. Run with it.
It's so interesting how people's destinies are intertwined, because if you hadn't have done all that, and then I hadn't have ended up there, my life would have been way different too. It's just so interesting how that I probably would have started playing drums, but I don't think I ever really would have gotten into jazz the same way I did. And yeah, but anyways, I'll do more about me later. But
I just and let's talk about this later, because you say that, and I remember you were burning the day you showed up. So I'm eager to explore that a little bit.
Well, I did learn from my dad. But at that point, when I first started coming out, because I'm probably one of the few people that learned jazz first. Like the first pattern my dad taught me was jazz.
Okay.
I learned how to play like a swing, feel before I learned how to play, rock and roll. But then by the time I was that age, I was definitely, just being kind of like a little bit of a punk, and just kind of.
No, you're in high school.
Really
That's your job.
Music, yeah.
It's your job when you're in high school.
Perfectly natural, perfectly healthy, and just having a good time. And I was big into skateboarding. That was a huge thing. I used to just kind of. It was my primary mode of transportation.
Okay.
The skateboard and the Metra, and then the CTA. And so I with the skateboard and those two things, the Metra and the CTA, I could make it just about anywhere that I needed to go.
Amazing.
I mean, I could skateboard like 6-7 miles, no problem, all the way up. Our house is in Wheaton, and it's pretty far because we're down, probably from the train to there is maybe the equivalent of if you go from like in Oak Park, from the Green Line, probably all the way to Cicero.
Wow.
Less traffic though, but it's a bit of a hike. Easy in a car, but that was what I was doing when I first started at the academy.
Okay.
I'll just talk about me for a little bit. So, my experience starting at the academy was the really amazing thing. When I went to my high school, there was like band, and at my high school, Wheaton Warrenville South, marching band was huge.
Yeah.
And my freshman year, it was like intense, and we actually Our percussion section, which I was in pit, I would have been on the line, but I was going to do football, believe it or not. And then I decided not to do football because I was pretty athletic then.
Okay.
I was mostly into skateboarding, but I was like, I want to do football. What the heck? And then I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And it was too late to audition, so they put me in pit. But that was actually kind of a blessing. I remember we used to practice outside, and there was our section leader. I'll never remember her name, but she was a taskmaster. She would not let us screw around, and we would just be playing scales outside in the beautiful weather for just hours and hours, just up and down on these Keelan marimbas that we had.
Yeah,
and Wheaton South, I mean, it's a nice area, but our equipment compared to the people that we were competing against, such as Lincoln Way and I think New Trier. I think those were the colleges.
Okay.
They're like colleges. They're not even schools.
Oh, yeah.
New Trier has better stuff than the college I went to, without a doubt. They'd show up with like their chrome-plated sousaphones. Ours was made out of PVC pipe. Because they cared about their football program. Half the school was a gym. It was very Wheaton Warrenville South. Wheaton North is a little more musical. Wheaton Warrenville South, it was a big athletic program. Not to say it's a bad school. It's a wonderful school. But our I was playing on Keelan instruments. They have these like beautiful rosewood 5-octave marimbas.
Yeah.
But guess what? We beat every single one of them. The one year I was in it, our band got third, but our percussion got first.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. If you were in it, it's hard.
It wasn't me. It was actually the main advantage we had. I have to say it was the guy who ran the drum line. He was a Cavaliers guy.
Okay. Yeah.
Derek Weber was the kid who he was like a really, really awesome percussionist. And his dad, I don't know what they're up to these days. They're probably still, but yeah, they were, the drum line was just really good.
Okay.
But we were backing them up too. Don't frown upon the pit section because we
no, never. Although it's hard for me to think about you in marching band because
sure.
you've never struck me. Maybe this will be a surprise to you, but you've never struck me as someone who likes to conform in a way that marching band, kind of requires a certain amount of conformity.
Right. Uniform and marching and everyone. It was intense. Yeah, and at least I didn't have to march. Yeah,
okay.
We were standing in the front, and we did I think it was the Color of Sound.
Okay,
that was the show that we did. And that is definitely conforming for sure. Even more than but it was cool. It was really fun. But back to the academy. When I went there, the most amazing thing was just the fact that there was just this kind of culture of people that were really into different styles of music than I had. I'd never run into like a big group of people that were into, I guess, like improvised music that didn't have like egregious amounts of distortion and expletive lyrics and like music that was maybe a little more understated and metaphorical versus one of the things that kind of bothers me about a lot of the music that I used to like when I was in that state is just so obvious and in your face. It's like there's absolutely no subtlety. Good music, I think, oftentimes has meaning that isn't just thrown. You're not hit it in the face with a bat, but it's there. You gotta analyze it a little bit.
So well said. I think that the students at the academy have always been, and I want to be careful not to sound like I'm taking credit for this. They were like this when I wandered in there at 16, and they're still like this, of being really thoughtful people who are not interested necessarily in conformity or being a clone, and very interested in exploring stuff deeply. And I think that any kind of art form where there's some nuance to it is very attractive to the students there. So you were big into playing jazz there, and that we never had enough students to have like a huge big band. And that meant that the combos that we're playing were largely that sort of 1950s, 1960s, 1970s style bop and post-bop kind of musical exploration. So everybody was thrown into that world, and y'all played great. Y'all played great.
I remember there was actually a group of people that I don't know how else to say it. It's kind of a silly way to say it, but it was just like a scene
Yeah.
And I've always, it's funny because since I've left there, I'm always still kind of searching for that same scene. And it's hard to find. Go to New York City and you'll find some of that, in the clubs. And then, in Chicagoland, you can find some of it. But yeah, it's just a kind of a culture that grows of people who support each other and are into music. It's very rare. You don't see it in too many places, because it's not about making lots of money. It's not about a lot of, especially the music stuff. It's not about like a political agenda or this or that or this or that. It's just about kind of creating art. Yeah. And yeah, that was just what attracted me to it. I mean, absolutely incredible experience. I just remember the first couple times. I was scared too when I went there, because I'm from Wheaton, so it's a western suburb of Chicago, and it's very, I don't know, kind of isolated and I took the train in, and there's the bus, and I have so many stories I could tell, and I probably shouldn't have, just the first experiences of coming into the big city and these city kids, just kind of like taking advantage of me, like he's silly little suburban kid. But I adapted very quickly. I think I figured out how to fit in. But yeah, and some of the students do you remember the class that I recall a violin player of German descent who...
Yeah, that was Lola Mann.
Yeah, right. Lola was great. Tyler was absolutely an inspiration for me.
Tyler Beach was a guitar player.
The jam session once here, actually. One of the second one we ever did.
Okay.
That was a while back. Still in touch with that person a little bit. And then I remember Chris Mann, Peter Fugel.
Peter Fugel, yeah.
Yeah, he sometimes he pronounces his name in a more old-fashioned way lately. I still get together with him every once in a while. Yeah, I remember sitting out in the grass with Chris Mann just playing classical guitar. That was a big thing there. Is that still a big thing, classical guitar?
Yeah, we make all of the students... When I say make, it sounds like so militant.
Force them to.
I guess in this way, it's important that in the music department at the Academy, everybody does some combination of classical performance, jazz performance, and now we have composition, and now we have recording arts.
Oh, that's new, yeah.
Back when you were there, it was pretty much everybody has to do classical performance and jazz performance. And it was weird. For a long time... This is before I was in charge of the department. The department was meant to be a capital C classical program. We have a classical tradition, a classical technique, a classical curriculum.
So one of the teachers I recall, was very, very rigid and strict. He was a cool guy, but
we won't name names.
You know what I'm talking about.
We won't name names. And I thought that was all good, but what was happening was that the jazzers were sort of, it was the long-haired kids all off in the corner being subversive with their jazz.
Right.
And one of the things that happened when you were there and that continued on is we decided, when I took over as the department head, I really pushed this, that everyone is going to study classical and everyone is going to study jazz.
Yeah.
It's traditionally really easy. You hear the argument all the time where people say, well, you need to study classical because the technique and the reading and the history... But no one ever says, well, welcome to our school. You need to know how to play the blues.
Sure.
And that frustrated me because that music is so central to our cultural identity in this country that I believe strongly, even if you've only played classical music all your life, and even if the only thing you want to do is become an opera singer, you got to know some Duke Ellington tunes.
Yeah.
And you've got to understand what John Coltrane was. You've got to understand the history and the music, and you need to play the blues. You need to improvise, and so now every student at the Academy, everyone's got a weekly classical lesson. Everyone's got a weekly jazz lesson. You're a harp player. Guess what? You're gonna have a weekly jazz lesson, and
that's a rare one.
that pursuit is very important.
I don't think I've ever met a jazz harp player.
We have everybody exploring.
I know a lot of harp players, but
yeah.
Believe it or not, I know like 6 because I went to Roosevelt, so
okay,
classical. And Roosevelt actually that's a conservative at school. Very, very conservative. There are stories. I won't go into them because this isn't really about Roosevelt, but stories from like 20, 30 years ago of maybe a little bit of backlash when the jazz program started to get big.
Okay.
That's a common thing in schools. Yeah, things change,
And like you said earlier, even in there's such this in the enormity of genres one can study, and it's scary to think that even at our school, which I think is a very progressive place and very open-minded place, I still get a little bit uncomfortable.
I definitely say that's true.
Well, classical, jazz, and
Sure.
composition and recording, and I think, well, there's all of this stuff in between and all of this other stuff on the other sides, and we need to make sure that we're training young people to be relevant once they leave. And so I think we're going to see at the college level more and more schools letting go of the very rigid, you're in the classical box and you're in the jazz box.
The whole question, I always struggled with this. What is good music? What is quality music? What is music that's worth something? I think the best answer I can come up with is music that means something to someone.
I'll subscribe to that.
I mean, just as if it means something to someone, then it's good. If it makes somebody feel something, then it's doing what.
I think about the Beatles, and we have this tradition in academia of, okay, you're going to study classical music, and now jazz has been legitimized as an academic pursuit. And some would argue it's been legitimized much to the detriment of the music.
Yeah, we could. I could talk about that for a while. It's changed it so much.
Right.
It's like it's America's classical music.
Right.
And a lot of the times it's reserved for wealthy occasions. It's not like as much of a living, breathing culture of innovation that it once was.
No, it's packaged up, and you say, welcome to the conservatory. And you think about the name, the conservatory, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to the conservatory. We're glad you're here. We love that you have all these ideas about music. But first you're going to need to learn your Charlie Parker, and first you're going to need, which is all critically important, but when you treat it the same way we treat classical music, when we say, we can't wait for you to innovate, but first you have to master the last 100 years of repertoire.
Yeah.
And then by the time you're through all of that, a lot of people have lost the spirit of pushing things forward and making new things, and we have to be careful of that. So schools have to honor that innovative urge that people walk in the door with.
I bet you the composition department does a lot of that.
We're very excited about our new
music
music program, and the new music program. We mean that as a genre. Like, new music is this 21st century. Some would call it classical composition because the instruments are from the classical tradition. But new music is a lot of times it'll feel avant-garde, or it'll be a rejection of certain conventions that we're used to. Like, maybe we're not going to use 12 tones. Maybe we're not going to subscribe to this whole tonal system of music. Maybe we're not going to play the instruments the way they're conventionally understood to be played.
Serialism?
Yeah, sure.
I remember all that. I actually, at my senior recital, I wrote a piece that utilized I think it was serialism.
Okay.
It's interesting stuff. There's so much out there. Yeah, there's just so much history with music. It's really interesting. Yeah. You go so far back, and yeah, do you guys do prepared piano?
Oh, sure.
That's another thing
my
I messed
God.
around with a little bit. Yeah.
I'll walk in there. I'll be giving some donor a tour, and we'll walk into one of the practicing
what are they doing
rooms.
to Steinway?
Right. Yeah, and you look up, and there's 4 kids with tools. They got their hands dug into the piano, and they look up like.
Tell you a funny story. I did my senior recital in Gons Hall at Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Which you're not supposed to do as a jazz musician. I think I was the only one ever to do that.
Okay.
And I had the audacity and gall to prepare the 10-foot, 11-foot Steinway with pieces of paper clips and pieces of putty, and then I think it was like a piece of paper. I didn't damage it at all. It was only 6 keys in the whole thing. So on the top, but you can kind of turn a piano almost into like a percussion instrument.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it was for the pianist. It was actually mostly a piece that was written with regular piano, but then he had these kind of effects they could add in.
Sure, yeah.
It was like a half improvised piece and half composed.
Yeah.
So it was just a little bit of everything, and that's one of the things I think. I mean, yeah, going to the academy definitely kind of set me up for that kind of attitude about music, being creative in that way, and
I love
thinking a little outside of the box.
I love hearing that. The legend has it that Keith Jarrett got kicked out of Berklee because he did what you were doing. That he that he put paper clips in and did a bunch of prepared piano stuff.
Fortunately, I did it on the way out, so yeah, right. I'm graduated.
Sorry about the Steinway.
Oh man, yeah. Sorry if anyone from Roseville is listening. but no, I mean, it wasn't a big deal. I was very, very careful with the instrument. But so Berklee, on to Berklee. Back to you. So when you went to college, that's where you ended up. Mrs. Jordan, she inspired you to go there. What was the audition like, and what was it like when you actually went there? It's funny. My father actually has a little bit of experience, just a tiny bit. I think he like checked the school out. I don't think he actually ever went there. And this is he lived in Rhode Island, so this is a very, very long time ago. But what was your experience when you went there?
I was only going to apply to one school. That was the only school I was going to. If I'm going to college, then it's got to be Berklee. And really the thing about it was they had this brochure. They've always been great at marketing. They had this brochure that just listed all of their alums. And it was all of these musicians that I just worshipped, and not just in one style or another. Steve Vai was an alum, and the guys from Aerosmith were alums.
Metheny is, right?
Pat Metheny was an alum, and Steve Smith was an alum, and
I love Steve.
Branford Marsalis, and so all of these great players. And I thought, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. And that was just when they were starting to do auditions. You would send in recordings. They had so many people auditioning that.
What was it? Was it cassette tape back then?
Yeah, I sent in a cassette tape.
Oh man, cassette tape! I could do a whole podcast just on how cool cassette tapes are.
And
okay. Let me tell you a quick story.
Yeah,
I had a guy come in for a recording session, a really young guy, and he didn't know that you can re-record over tape. He thought it was just you recorded and it's there.
Amazing.
And I was just like, no, man. It's just so funny because you can't blame him. Like, no one has tape anymore. But yeah, for any of those millennials and younger who are listening, who never got to make a mixtape for their girlfriend or boyfriend, or you can actually re-record over tape unlimited times. It does degrade the tape eventually, but technically, it's unlimited. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I sent in a cassette tape, and I cringe now because at the time, I thought I was sending in just like the most badass thing.
Sure.
I had a sequencer and a keyboard and a bunch of gear. And
so, what was it, like your own tunes that you wrote? Or?
No. So I had this little studio set up in my house. I had a Roland JV80 synth, and I had a Brother sequencer. This was before you could use a Mac to do all your sequencing on. It was like a 2-line screen for the sequencing.
Nice.
And I just thought it would be the coolest thing in the world if I made a couple of arrangements of songs that I liked and did all of the instrumentation on my synth, did the whole MIDI arrangement, and then recorded myself playing along with the MIDI arrangement. So you ready?
That is cool.
Yeah, but it was
Jocko
two tunes.
did something kind of similar.
This was not as cool.
For college,
I did Birdland,
nice.
but not as hip as Weather Report, because I thought at the time Maynard Ferguson was just like totally
those high notes.
So I did a Maynard Ferguson like arrangement of Birdland, and for some reason I thought the theme to Jesus Christ Superstar was just super cool, right?
You guys had just done that at the academy before I started.
Yeah, and somehow, so when I got to the academy, my first gig was music directing Jesus Christ Superstar. And I got into Berkeley making this recording, and I still have it, and I listen to it, and I'm horrified. I'm just horrified.
I've got some old stuff like that.
Oh, the arrangements are bad. My playing is, I mean, it's good, but it's good in an utterly tasteless way. Like somebody give this kid needs to grow up.
I still have the CDs that you recorded at Patera of me.
Oh yeah, I got
to
those.
Get into do you keep all? You archive all the old stuff?
All of that.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man.
I have all of that stuff. Yeah, but
we're like music hoarder, and it's so funny because it's like, why do you even keep it? What are you gonna do with it? Well, maybe I'll need it at some point. It's just good to have it.
If you were in a concert your sophomore year and you played "Yellow After the Rain" on marimba, I've got the videotape somewhere. It's probably VHS.
That's awesome.
Can't ever play it again, but I've got it.
Actually, I have a VH player here in the shop that works. Believe it or not.
Great, I'll send you some VHS tapes.
You ever want me to bounce those over to digital? Send them over to me. Yeah.
I just may. Yeah. Careful what you volunteer.
Oh, it's all right. Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
So Berkeley liked the tape. They liked the tape. They let me in. They gave me a little bit of a scholarship, and I got there, and my head exploded. And it was just the academy. Hanging out at the academy for several years already kind of blew my mind, and then experiencing it on a big level.
So you had a good experience at Berkeley. You liked it there.
I loved it.
That's awesome.
It.
I've heard sometimes it was difficult to get ensembles that were well balanced at that school, but you didn't have an issue with that.
Like
8 guitar players and 4 drummers and.
I didn't have that experience.
That's awesome. I mean,
and I'll tell you why I didn't have that experience. It's
and that may be a past thing. You know, I'm not because I don't. Truth is, I've never even been there, so I don't know anything about.
My ratings. I don't know if they still do ratings, but they used to do this thing where you'd audition. They'd give you a 4-digit number, which is your performance rating, and one was like improv, and one was technique, and one was reading or whatever it was, and you'd get your ratings, and the higher your numbers, the better the ensembles you could get into. So I had pretty decent ratings as a drummer, and I got in some good ensembles. But then I started taking piano lessons, and I fell in love with my teacher, and I just wanted. It was one of those situations where I don't care what you're teaching. You could be teaching rock smashing, you could be teaching grand theft. Whatever it is,
Sure.
Whatever you're teaching, I want to learn. And I actually changed my major.
Do you remember his or her name?
Yeah, Jeff Covell.
Oh, cool. Yeah, sometimes it's good to do a little shout out to.
Yeah, Jeff Covell.
Still
I'm going to send this
teaching
to you.
there,
I think he is still teaching there.
Nice, yeah.
And totally changed my life. I'm going to tell a funny Jeff Covell story in a second, but I changed my major to piano and immediately went from someone with great ratings to someone with terrible ratings. And my ratings on piano were really bad.
Yeah, I remember you telling us about that, how piano's important. Yeah, you should do piano, and then how you changed your major.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a ballsy decision, yeah, to change from the instrument you played your whole life, but boom, yeah.
Yeah, suddenly I want to change piano, and they probably wouldn't have let me in,
right?
But I was already in,
Sure.
and I had this teacher who was humoring me and giving me lessons, and so I changed my major. I graduated as a piano player, but if I was in ensembles as a piano player, I don't remember it.
Right.
They're probably like, yeah, this kid just needs to go in the practice room and shed for a while. Don't use up any of our bass players on this kid.
Yeah.
And Jeff kicked my butt all the time. He was one of those teachers.
But did you stay on piano for the rest of the...
Yeah, and my degree is in piano.
Wow.
I wish I could still play some of that rep today. I can't. I wish I had recordings.
Do you still live in the same place?
No, I live downtown now.
Oh, you do? Okay. Because I remember, another thing we talk about a little bit is the whole Patera thing. That was always fun. and that was at your place. I think that was in Berwyn, right?
Yeah, it was in Berwyn. Right. So,
and then you had a piano. Do you have a piano at your place now? Or?
I don't, but I spend so much time at the school.
I'm the same. I have a keyboard at home, but here, I mean, I have a piano that it's always better to play on the analog.
We've got a 9-foot Furyk at school, and when I want to play piano, I just go upstairs.
I don't think that was
play
there there was a Steinway there when I was there though. But
yeah, we got
rid
of that.
It was a shorter one.
Yeah, that was a bad piano. Actually, I sold that piano to the piano mover for $9,000 in cash. Oh. And that was a boon for us because it was going to take like $20,000 to rebuild it.
Oh, it was all beast of a machine. Yeah. Do you remember when Tyler was moving a piano from the room that's now the recording studio to the main room, and the leg fell off, and the piano hit the ground, and he was so scared and embarrassed, and who knows why it happened, but that's a funny story.
Yeah, I think
I was in the other room and I came out
and the leg like cracked off and the whole thing collapsed. Right?
Yeah, Peter always talks about that. When I hang out with him,
that's such an Academy moment.
Right,
totally an Academy moment.
You know, one of my favorite memories of the Academy. You probably don't allow the kids to do this anymore, but there was
kids. If you're listening, don't take notes.
Actually, well, this isn't that bad. There's the fire escape.
Oh God!
You're like, okay, just stop there. See, no, cutting this part out. So there's the fire escape, and just going out there and just hanging out, and just the kind of breeze from the lake and the smell of spring.
Yeah.
Just being out there, and then over the parking lot, just on the music floor. That's like maybe my best memory. From the school.
That was one of those things that I had to crack down on,
but
I didn't want to.
Sure. Just open a window.
The fire department doesn't like that.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And so that was, and as the head of the school, sometimes you got to be like, all right, everybody, I like it, but don't do it. Right?
I mean, it's dangerous. Yeah,
the code and laws and all that stuff. Yeah.
They could probably... The doors are probably alarmed now, I imagine, right?
I think they say they're alarmed.
Yeah. Right.
I don't think any alarm actually goes off.
You don't necessarily have to like walk out onto it. You could just open it up, breathe in a little bit of the air, and then close it.
Plenty of that is going on. Yeah, plenty of that is going on.
But no, I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. I remember that. That was probably the first year I went there. Yeah, I don't know. Chicago has really, and there used to be the bread factory, which is not there anymore. I see on Google Earth, which is very sad. I liked that. Did you like the...
Oh, my God. Every day around noon, the smell of fresh baked bread just wafting through the school. I loved that. Yeah, now it's just very expensive apartments.
Right. There's no good bread smell in there.
No,
You'll have to get maybe have the department heads buy like a bread making machine.
That sounds like a good initiative. I like that.
Do it. Yeah. You make some nice healthy bread. Pass it out to the students. I got ideas for you. But yeah. So let's see. Where to go next? We talked about the school, maybe a little bit about, and then your experience at Berkeley. I did want to say one of the reasons I really liked the Academy, and for everybody, like I'm kind of I'm a musician. I've got kind of a unique attitude about life and music and probably just about everything. So this is just a little bit of talking to Jason here, a little bit of history of where I come from and the unique circumstances. I kind of had a really unique high school experience because half at the Wheat Warville South, and then half at the Academy. Very, 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 very different experiences.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember, like my history class, for example, the text that we used for
A People's History of the United States.
Yeah, by Howard Zinn.
That is still our history textbook.
That's pretty extreme. Yeah. But
I think Howard Zinn, his whole idea was to talk about history from the vantage point of the oppressed. And the way our history teacher does it right now, I think is kind of interesting that there's two books everyone reads. Everyone reads Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, which is a very...
I had Schill. Is Schill still there?
Schill has retired. Oh. I'm going to tell you about Schill in a second.
He was, and I do have to say, His class was fantastic. Yeah, I loved that man.
Yeah.
Him and Tynan, because I don't know if I'm really into history. And
Tynan is still there.
Him and Tynan.
Tynan is still there. Tynan will never leave. He'll never leave the
I'll
academy.
stop by the school one of these days. You'll have to. Maybe I'll text you. Tell me if he's around, and
Please
I'll drop
do.
by
He
and
would
see you.
love to see you.
Yeah,
he would love to see you.
I ran into him once biking on the path on Lake Michigan.
Okay.
Just out of nowhere.
He likes to hang out there. He lives near the lake, and he'll
That's
go to the beach and smoke a cigar and hang out. Hang out watching the waves roll in.
Yeah, I was in AP history.
Okay. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite classes. But anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say. So he's got that sort of hyper liberal left book, and then the textbook that he teaches is called something like. It's called something like Liberty and Power, and you're like,
well, yeah, that's good to have.
And you can just by looking at the cover, okay, these books are on different sides of the political spectrum.
For me, it was interesting because when I went to Wheaton World South, I had a book kind of like Liberty and Power, and then I went to the academy, and I think our only book was
probably, and one book is like Christopher Columbus discovered the New World and destroyed all of those pesky natives and built everything up, and the other book is the biggest villain of the last 1,000 years.
Almost like the first third of the entire book focuses on Native American culture and what it was, and there's a lot of amazing stuff there that really is worth checking out. Yeah, a lot of times I love I watch YouTube, and one of the biggest things I watch on you, I love the documentaries. That's I think one of the best things that the internet and the millennial generation. You can talk a lot negative. A lot of our music stinks, and a lot of our we're always complaining about everything, and
But you have on demand. You can watch and learn about anything you want at any moment for free.
The documentaries they're not big money makers. They're not big cash cows, and so I don't think there are a ton of people that are searching out to try and sue about them. So they just get thrown up there, and people can watch them, which is really great.
That's great. Yeah.
But yeah, and then another thing from my perspective at the academy, one of the really awesome things going there was just the way that the students supported each other.
Yeah.
When I went to Roosevelt. It was a great school, and I was with Paul Wertico there.
That's right. Yeah.
I hope he'll do a podcast with me at some point. He's awesome. He's great, and we had we did our lessons, and I think some of my favorite classes were like composition and arranging. I had that with Tom Garling, which was just absolutely amazing. And I still arrange stuff for like big bands, 9-piece groups, just for fun. Getting them played is not ever easy because you gotta get 9 good musicians together. But yeah, those classes were great. But there, at Roosevelt there was a theater department, and then there was a music department, and we would go to each other's shows. But it just people didn't at the academy people would gladly go because they wanted to go. I don't know if you guys have anything now that says there's like a minimum of shows you have to go to support other people. But when I was there, that wasn't necessary because everyone would go because they just wanted to. Yeah,
that's not a rule we'd ever have to have because people
just
do it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
People just do it.
A lot of colleges have that rule. It's like you have to go to this many shows. It's really, I think the difficult thing is trying to get the musicians to go see the theater and then the theater to go see the music. That's the difficult part, but.
No, we see a lot of cross departmental support at the school. Lots of people go to all of this stuff, and that's great because if you're so myopic that you only care about your art form, you're less likely to innovate in your own art form if you're not aware of what happens in dance or what happens in theater or what happens in film. But you're just missing out on a critical life experience to see beautiful things made by other people.
Right.
You've got to check it out. That's our role as artists, that we are creators of the things that make life worth living.
Sure.
And there is beauty and powerful work out there. We have a role to go see great music, go see great film, go see great theater or great dance or great art. And at the Academy, I want to be careful to say they're not doing it because of the adults in the building. They're not doing it because, Patera said we have to go to the play this weekend. They're doing it because that culture that has been passed down from generation to generation, the culture says it has to happen. The kids today support each other like that because you all did that when you were part of the school 15, 20 years ago. And the reason you all did that is because the generations of students before you did that. So it's that tradition and that legacy. And that makes it a real easy school to run. We don't have very many rules, and we don't have to.
I love that about it. Just the fact that people just really, I mean, I would just you're talking to someone during the first half of the day, and they're, I'm gonna go see them because I'm excited about supporting my friend and for everyone out there listening, try to support your local musicians and your local artists, theater. I mean, even like before I went to the academy, I was never really a theater goer, but then afterwards, I definitely have seen my fair share of theater shows throughout Chicago. Yeah. Some my wife's some of her family members were big into theater, and I used to go see them, and it just felt like familiar to me.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important that if I can get on my soapbox for a second, a thing that frustrates me about education, and it carries over into adult life, is that the media tells us there's all these reasons that the arts are important. And you'll see the media, the stories will lament, oh my gosh, at District 5000 High School, they're going to cut the band program, and they shouldn't cut the band program because the media will say kids in band are better at math, and kids in band have higher self-esteem, and kids in band are more likely to graduate. And what frustrates me is that when we make the art about something that isn't art, like kids should be in band because they're going to be better at math. Well, if I'm the school principal and my goal is to get kids better at math, I'm just going to spend more money on math.
Sure.
Get some better math teachers. That no principal ever says, oh, geez, our math scores suck, so what we need is a third jazz band. Sure. No school says that. And we train kids to believe that art is only important because it does other stuff. And then they graduate and they go out into the world, and we have politicians who talk about how art is important because of the local economy.
It's almost like a utilitarian attitude towards everything. Yeah.
And we have a responsibility. Art is important because art is important. Art is important because there has to be a reason to keep living. There has to be a reason to live longer. There has to be a reason to try to earn more money. And I believe it's to see beautiful things. Yeah. And so we have a responsibility. And we're in Chicago. There's something amazing happening every single day. We have to go to the theater. We have to experience dance. We have to see the new exhibit at the Art Institute or the MCA. We have to go see Parasite and absorb virtuosic filmmaking that means something and isn't just something cliche and obvious like you were talking about before. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now, but I have a microphone in my face, and I'm gonna spend some time saying that out loud.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, yeah, man, and definitely the school. It's kind of a bastion of that attitude, and you don't see it in too many places.
No, I don't think we do. Yeah.
And that's a wonderful thing to support and be a part of, but the academy. Sometimes I have dreams about it, and they're always like really fun dreams. Like I said, I always end up on the balcony, and I'm just like hanging out on the balcony, just hey. Hey, how's it going? Always good dreams. I talked about that when I went to the reunion. I was like, does anyone else have academy dreams? And everyone looked at me like, you're a weirdo.
I don't know. I mean, I work there. I have academy dreams all the time. I wake up in the middle of the night like,
you don't have to have the dreams. But I want to talk a little about. So, tell me a little about your transition from being the head of the music department to then being the head of the whole school. How did that whole thing? Because I don't even know. I wasn't there. I was doing my own thing at that point.
I loved being the head of the music program. And
and
we together.
You did a lot too. You got us a marimba.
Oh yeah, I spent all kinds of money. I got drum sets and marimbas and I figured one year I was like, wait, I have a budget?
Right.
I'm spending the money. And
You bought cymbals from us too, I think, at one point.
Yeah,
we did.
We did.
Do you still have those Constantinoples?
Oh yeah, it's a 22-inch Constantinople.
I saw them playing.
Yeah.
The fact that you guys still have those and that they haven't walked out of there is a testament to how cool the school is.
I worry.
Because you've had it, 10 years?
Oh yeah. That 22 is still around. Sometimes I worry.
I mean, I had stuff
stolen
stolen from me at Roosevelt. Never had anything stolen from me at the academy.
People generally have a pretty good respect for the gear. I mean, not
I
always.
think I
Bad
saw
stuff
it
happens,
in a video. I think I saw maybe the K that you guys bought from us, the Constantinople, and I was like, I think that's the one you got from us. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's one. I think there's two. There's a 22 Constantinople, and I think there's also a 20-inch flat ride.
It looked aged. It looked like it had the hands of 10,000 grubby teenagers.
16-year-old boys. Yeah.
Just and that's why I said that's probably the same stuff like that from us. Yeah. Which actually, that's the key to the sound. It's all that. Drummer, grit.
Yeah. It was hard to transition from teaching and running the music department into a non-teaching role, an administrative role. But
I can imagine. And remember when I dropped by? I was like biking. This is when I was doing. I think I was working at food service. I was biking north, and I just popped over. And at that point, I think you were. Pam Jordan was still there, but you were doing administrative stuff though.
I was probably her assistant head.
At
the
that's
time.
what.
Yeah,
I was surprised. I come in, we're like, "Hey, Jason, can I go see him?" Oh, he's over there. What's he doing over there?
There were a couple things that motivated me, and the official story that I tell myself is that I felt like I had taken the music department as far as I could take it, and I knew that it needed somebody with deeper artistic experiences and credibility than me. I was good at logistics. I was good at community building. But I wanted to see the department grow and move forward. And I knew that there was a limit because I was not getting better as an artist. And that frustrated me because I feel strongly that the person teaching the people needs to be a relevant artist, and I was not a relevant artist. I'm a good player, but I wasn't doing gigs. I wasn't making records anymore. I wasn't pushing my own artistry forward, and I thought that was doing a disservice to the kids.
Did Josh Quinlan stick around a little while after? Was he still around when you switched roles? Or?
I think so. Yeah, I think he was there another year or two.
And then who's the head of the music department now?
Well, right now we have an interim head because we had a longtime head, and she moved to LA to pursue a professional opportunity. So we're actually interviewing for head right now.
Oh, well, hey, everybody.
If anyone's listening and you're interested in being the head of the music department at the Chicago Academy for the Arts, I'd like to talk to you.
Maybe some alums out there?
Now, if I'm being honest, the reason that I most wanted to switch to the administration is I knew the job was opening, and I was worried about who might get that job.
Oh, sure,
And I thought that job had an enormous amount of, and still does, an enormous amount of power and authority in the school.
You can make a difference to the whole school.
Yeah, good or bad.
Right.
And I was nervous about, and I didn't know anything about who was applying for it, but I thought, boy, if the wrong person gets in this job, they're going to mess it all up. Right. And so it was a combination of I want to protect the school, I want to stroke my own ego because I could work alongside Pam Jordan. I could be the assistant head of school. I want to do that, and all those things kind of work together. And
you've always been a really organized guy. At least it seems to me.
That's the story I tell myself. But as head of school, the people who work for me now, they would not all say that.
Sure. It seems to me because there's the whole gambit. There's people who just like their room is a mess, everything's a mess, and then there's people who are like everything is perfectly organized. I'm pretty organized. Sometimes it can be, especially now that I have kids. Oh my goodness, they're always like throwing toys on as you're cleaning. They're literally right behind you.
Yeah, trail of destruction right behind you.
Yeah,
You were always I don't remember anything about your like physical organization, but I remember the organization of your thinking was always very admirable, and that made you a lot of fun to work with as a teacher because
Awesome.
I could tell you stuff, and you would sort it out in your brain, and you'd be able to do it, and that was
Categorize
really cool.
it. Yeah. You picture a pattern. I've always been a very visual. I've always been really, really good at geometry. And I picture things a lot of the times. Yeah, almost like a filing cabinet. You can put stuff.
Okay.
That's one way. Yeah. Stuff that I'm really interested in, I have like a photographic memory for. Isn't that like almost like a train spotting type thing?
Oh, maybe.
Where,
maybe.
You just like certain things, like history for me. I'm really into history. I just soak it up like a sponge.
Okay, I believe that.
Everything. Yeah,
I believe that.
Yeah, I was talking to sometimes my wife. I'll have big long conversations about history with her. You know, we're just relaxing, having a drink, and I'm just going on about this and that. I'm really bored with this, but I just love this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I've been in the administration now for the last, I think, 10 or 12 years, and it's a lot different.
And then, so when did Pam quit? When did she move? Did she move somewhere else, or did she retire? Or?
She is the head of a school in California now called the Idlewild Arts Academy.
Nice.
There are only 4 private art schools in the country.
Funny story. I had never hailed a cab before. The first day I went to the academy, and I had to ask her how to hail a cab.
I love it.
Like, do I just like put my? What do I do? She's like, yeah, just put your own. I'm like, oh, okay. I'd never done it before because I'd come to the city, but I was always with somebody who would do it.
Life skills.
I was like scared to do it. Yeah, that's a funny story.
There's only
she taught me that. That's one thing.
Yeah,
she's direct from her.
She's a magician. She's incredible. There are only 4 independent arts high schools in the country, and she moved from one of the 4 to another one, and then I became the head. This is my 4th year as the head of the
one
school.
of them would be the big New York one.
That's a public school.
Oh, really?
So,
the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the one that Fame was based off of.
Yeah.
So there are independent ones. There's one in Boston. There's one just north of here in Interlaken. It's called Interlaken.
Okay.
And then one in California called Idlewild. And we all know each other, too. There's only 4 of us who call each other up all the time.
It's almost like drum shops. There's almost no drum shops anymore. There's like maybe 10 big ones.
And that's sad to me.
And then there's probably another 100 smaller ones, but...
And that, I just want to say, and I want to get this on the podcast, that walking in here and seeing what you and your crew here has done fills me with joy. I mean that literally. That this is a joyful place filled with real instruments that have their own character and their own personality, made and played by real people. That this is an oasis of joy and good that I think I'm just so happy this exists. I'm so happy seeing the different rooms and all the different gear, and this is going to buoy my spirits for a long time.
That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you appreciate it. Yeah, it's an interesting business to be in, and yeah, probably more than just a business. There's always a business aspect to everything. You always need to make sure your numbers work and all that to keep things, keep like the gears moving in the school too,
But there's a love present here too.
Yeah.
You want any whether it's you or your dad, anyone you run into, the joy of the business radiates from the place. And it's not just about, well, we got to make a profit, and what's the easiest way to make a profit? If you were exclusively focused on profit, well, you'd have 17 of the same mass-produced drum kit in boxes, and you'd be shipping them out the door.
Sure.
But there's just such a purity of concept here that is really inspiring to me. And Yeah, I feel like a little kid again. My dad taking me to the drum shop downtown and seeing all the awesome stuff.
Yeah, you were talking about you've been to Frank's and then Drums Limited. You and my dad earlier today when you first came by were talking about that a little bit.
First drum shop I ever went in was Frank's, and then we went down the street to Drums Limited, and those were such special times. I remember when maybe I was in 5th grade or 6th grade. It was my birthday, and my dad's like, well, we're gonna go downtown. We're gonna go to the drum shop, and we're gonna get you some cymbals. And I remember my dad said, but we're not getting you Zildjians, because in his mind he understood that they were the he wasn't a drummer, so he just understood the brand meant something to him, but he understood it as being expensive and that we probably wouldn't be able to afford it.
Those are the pricey ones, yeah.
Yeah, and we got to Frank's, and my dad immediately understood when he had his hands on it that the brand meant something very important, and he was sold. He's like, You thought you were going to get a ride cymbal and a hi-hat and a crash cymbal. No, what we're doing is we're going to get quality. And we're going to start with a hi-hat, and I got a pair of 14-inch new beats that I still have.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's awesome that so many people sell their first cymbals. Me and my dad on the last one, we were talking about his first cymbal.
And I just loved being there and seeing the Zildjians, and then we walked down the street to Drums Limited, and we'd go to the DJ's Music in Cicero, and that experience of walking into a business run by real people who you can know, you can talk to Frank,
sure,
and I'll never forget that. And we don't see a lot of that now. Everything is mass-produced or chain-produced or corporatized or institutionalized, and
we're really lucky to be able to do what we do. Yeah, you have to be in this day and age. You have to be kind of creative when you especially if you're in a. We were talking about like utilitarian thinking before, and some jobs it's like you just need it, like things like I don't know, making sure that the garbage is taken, and then making sure that the streets work and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to music, it's one of those things that it's to make a career in it, because so many people want to do it.
Right.
You have to be creative. That's a type of creativity. I actually wanted to talk about this to you. I've found in my life that there's different types of creativity. There's the type where you can like write a really beautiful piece of music, but then there's a kind of another type where you can figure out how to make that do something.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, and some people have like way too much of one and none of the other. I found after college, actually, I was kind of in that boat, and then you get into the real world, and you have to. If you don't, then you're gonna end up just moving back home or something. You have to figure out how to apply it to.
You're exactly right. I get burned out sometimes on the word creativity because it gets hijacked to mean. I guess I don't mean to say it gets hijacked to mean things it doesn't mean, but it gets thrown around a lot of, we want our kids to be creative and we want our businesses to be creative. I like to back off from that a little bit and say, we want people to be able to make stuff. We want people to be able to build stuff. We want people to be able to do stuff. And someone's got to make the song, and someone's got to figure out how to use it, and someone's got to figure out how to take care of the people involved with that. And especially now, we can't always just rely on how things were done 5 years ago or 10 years ago or even last year.
Everything changes so fast in this time and age. Yeah.
So
styles of music, technology,
business, right?
In 20 years, the new thing is like TikTok now. You ever see that TikTok stuff?
Oh yeah.
But what's Lily, my daughter? What's she gonna? Is it gonna be a video that's literally like a millisecond long? It's gone. It's over. Because everyone's attention spans are getting shorter. But it's strange. People are actually becoming more intelligent. That's something a lot of people don't think about. even though our attention spans get shorter, and we're better at different things. Like 100 years ago, people were really good at like the humanities.
Okay.
Like I could quote, like Socrates, and like everyone would know what I was talking about. Whereas nowadays it's different. People are better at like math and science, and it's interesting how things change. But apparently, I read that there were like tests, for example, like ACTs. They're always getting harder. So people are actually becoming more intelligent. You wouldn't think that sometimes, but
you could argue that people are getting more intelligent. You could argue that as a culture we have placed such importance on those tests that from a very young age we say, okay, Johnny, you're going to take a very important test 10 or 12 years from now. Let's make sure that your school prepares you for that day where some international corporate conglomerate who has sold $1 million worth of tests to a school district so you can do well on that test.
I think auditioning for orchestras is a little like that too. In the classical world is way different than it used to be.
We live in strange times.
I'm telling you, man, it's the internet. It's the internet. The internet, it's just changed. It's almost like the new printing press has been invented.
Oh, I think that's absolutely an apt analogy. But times 1,000.
Right.
Yeah, we have the entirety of the world's information
too much, man.
on a piece of glass in our pocket.
I want to take mine and sometimes just smash it. If throughout the day, if I just wake up, go to work, and then go home, it's like nothing bad happens. But then if I listen to my phone, it's like coronavirus. Yeah. This guy's horrible, murder. Yeah. This and that and this. It's like it really seems.
It's a machine that's very efficient at making us feel bad.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like the whole weight of the world is on your shoulders, and you have to. I mean, like as if you can even affect any of it, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, this thing is finally.
There you go. You've got your lava lamp functioning as it should.
Not quite. Come on, man. There's supposed to be more liquid in there. I think there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, maybe you got a leak. You have lava all over your table.
Yeah. Very, very funny. Oh, well. We got a couple little bubbles. I bet y'all got a comment about that. Maybe someone will be like, hey, check this company out for lava lamps. So your first kit was a Slingerland kit. You said Blue Sparkle, I think?
Yeah, it was a Blue Sparkle. I suspect it was probably the standard jazz sizes of the time. I think it was 20, 12, and 14 with maybe a 5x14 snare. It was beat up. It had lived a long, hard life, and that was my first real drum set. I think I had a toy drum set. Yeah, I had a toy drum set when I was a kid. My next kit, when I was in maybe 4th or 5th grade, my parents bought me a set of Tama Imperial Stars. Mm-hmm. White, 5-piece kit.
Those are nice drums.
12, 13, 16-inch floor tom. And we went to a sale at DJ's Music a few years later, and they had just sitting around an 8-inch tom and a 10-inch tom, and it was the Tama Swing Star series. But they were close enough to the Imperial Stars that I saw these two toms, and I had to have them.
Add them on there?
I had to go from a 5-piece to a 7-piece.
Yeah.
And oh my
5
God.
isn't enough.
Oh, I loved it. I had the regular 5-piece setup, and then the two toms over here, and and when you're a kid, you just don't know what to do with the hi-hat, so the hi-hat kept getting farther and farther away.
So before you were, you went off to school. Did you play with the various bands you were in? Did you play any like local clubs that would like are still around or people would know about?
Well, let's see.
Or bars or whatever.
Probably.
You're young at this point, so yeah.
The places we played in high school
when did they change the age to 18 to 21? That
was before I was a teenager.
Not long before though, but a little bit.
I think that happened in the early 80s. So I was a teenager in the late 80s and early 90s.
It probably hurt the club scene a little bit.
I bet it did.
It's always advantages and disadvantages to.
In my rock bands, we played at There was a rock club in River Grove called the Thirsty Whale. That's gone now. It's a McDonald's now.
Cool name.
There was
It's a McDonald's now. That's what we need.
Yeah, right. There is a place called the Gateway Theater that we played at a bunch.
I think I've heard of that before.
I couldn't even tell you where it is.
Sounds familiar.
A couple different bars. There was a place called McGregor's, and in the town where I lived, there was like a non-alcohol like teen club called Madonna's that we used to play at.
They had something like that in Wheaton when I was growing up. It was called the Velvet Lounge.
I played there.
Yeah,
I know what that place was.
Oh, you know that? Yeah, it's like kind of behind Front Street.
Yeah.
So and it was just kind of a little spot. You go in and no drinks served at all.
Yeah.
Who I wonder who owned that place. Who knows?
But the thing that where we played our best concerts, this was my entrepreneurial spirit, is I would be 16 or 17 and I would rent out a VFW hall. And I would convince them to rent me the hall, and then I would sell tickets to my own concert. And I would find some
Very
other
entrepreneurial.
band. Yeah. I'd find some other band that was a little bit more popular than us, but they couldn't be better than us.
Sure.
And they'd be a little bit worse, but more popular. They'd open for us, and then they'd sell tickets, and then we'd pay that band $50 or something, and we would just keep all the money. So I was learning how to be a promoter when I was 16 and 17.
So
I did that
at
a
this
lot.
point. It was kind of like a hard rock kind of band?
Yeah. Van Halen, Pearl Jam,
Sure.
Black Crowes, Led Zeppelin, all that kind of Metallica.
I was big into Pearl Jam when I was growing up. That was some cool. I think the album 10, I think it was called.
Oh yeah, and that was right about the same time that Nirvana's Nevermind came out.
Yeah.
And so before that, we were all into like the 80s rock scene. Bon Jovi, Whitesnake, Van Halen, all that stuff.
Long hair, crazy outfits.
And then Pearl Jam 10 and Nirvana Nevermind came out. And we were little teenage music snobs, and we were like, "This is terrible. But we saw how popular it got immediately, and we knew, okay, the music we play is doomed. We'd better learn these songs, and we learned all those songs.
Like the Bob Dylan song.
Yeah,
times are changing.
and we learned them, and we thought, okay, this is great. We actually fell in
grunge
love
was
with
kind
the
of an
music.
interesting thing because like a little more minimalistic than like less is.
Yeah, no one's tapping on the fretboard or anything like that. And it wasn't long after that I started really getting into jazz. So.
I like some of those kits too because they started using 4-piece kits again, which was that hadn't been done for a long. I mean, so you were part of the generation that had to bring like 7 drums to each gig.
Oh my God, I had
that's a lot of work.
in my late teens. I had 2 drum kits that were my go-to drum kits. I had the Sonar Highlight kit, which was a 7-piece, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, 13, 16. And I had this ridiculous Yamaha Rock Tour Custom.
Even more pieces?
No, but more ridiculous. It was 2 24-inch bass drums.
That's what you need, man.
And then
can't play a show without that.
2 rack toms right in the middle, 12 and 14 rack toms, and then a 16 and an 18 floor tom.
That's a big drum
and
set
it
right
was
there.
just...
that's surprisingly close to what they were doing in the 40s. You know, the only difference is that 14-inch rack tom. No one would ever have that. But
right, they would just have the 12 right there in the middle.
Or probably a 13, like the Louis Bellson.
Yeah, the Louis Bellson.
And then he didn't use an 18, but then before that, when you had like the Gene Krupa stuff, the big floor tom was big.
On that rock kit, I had my heads, they were pinstripes, and I had them so loose that it was just like a splat. When you hit him. It was a splat, 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 splat. Because Tommy Aldridge, that's how he tuned his drums. And I wanted to sound, for some reason, like Tommy Aldridge at the time.
Yeah, being a drummer is such a unique thing, even in the music world. You know, if you play the flute, an A is an A. It's either in tune or it's not in tune.
Yeah.
There's tone, and there's definitely many different techniques. There's like a European style of tonguing. There's an American style of tonguing. I know a lot about flute because my wife's a flute player.
Okay.
But when it comes to drums, the way you tune your drums, I mean, it's what kind of head are you going to use? What kind of drum are you going to use? Is it a metal drum? Is it a wood drum? Is it a calfskin head? Is it a plastic head? Is it a clear head? Is it a coated head?
What do you want the response to be of the stick off the drum? And so many.
There's no right answer. It's just, and each drummer has their sound and style.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and it is the real true American instrument.
Oh yeah.
It's the one that it has a little bit of every culture. You know, the cymbals are Turkish. The toms are, they're Chinese in origin. The bass drum and the snare drum are European. They're like kind of military instruments.
Bring it all together.
The rhythms are descended from Latin, African, Afro-Cuban kind of rhythms.
Right.
And then you read the music. That's kind of a European influence. Bring it all together, and you got an American drum set. There's literally like a little bit of everything. Yeah, you gotta love it. And when it comes to tuning, it's so funny because like the jazz guys, they like to tune them open and high often, not always. And then you go like Nashville, you go to you get like the country, very very low toms. They don't want to get in the way. That's a little closer to the splat kind of sound you were talking about, which works though. The funny thing is, when I was in college, I became like a jazz kind of elitist. I was like, I'm never gonna tune my toms like that. But then I realized I recorded myself with on a church gig or a country gig, and I hit the toms. I was like, man, that doesn't sound right. I'm not gonna tune my drums like that for this gig anymore. It got in the way of the singer or something when I did a fill.
Yeah. So you've got to be sensitive to all of that.
Right, and don't become, single-minded into any one way of tuning. It's really, when it comes to drums, it's like you tune for the event and make whoever is booking the show, whoever's getting people to come out, whoever's paying you, tune the way they like. That's probably
know your audience. Know your audience. Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. But then so after that, were you kind of doing that whole thing right up until you went to college?
Yeah, well, I started getting into jazz right before I went to college. I had this major epiphany. So I was in a rock band, and I was having this inferiority complex of everyone was in love with the singer. This is Brian again. So he's this like super good looking guy playing the guitar. He's a virtuoso guitar player. He's also the singer of the band. He writes all these sensitive songs, and the girls just love him. Sure. And I'm the drummer, and I've got this ridiculous, massive drum set. I got two China boys, one on either side of me. I'm the only one who thinks that's cool. And I felt like at the time, I need to become more of an artist. And I said this ridiculous thing. I went out and I got a teacher, and I was like, I need to learn how to play jazz. Because I had this stupid idea that jazz will make me into a more respectable artist. But the thing is that I wanted him to like write out the proper beats or give me the right book to learn the right grooves or the right fills or whatever it was. And he would tell me, nah, man, you got to listen. You have to listen to the music. And I was like, no, just what book do I need that's going to show me this sophisticated music so that I will be more sophisticated?
Sure.
And my whole life changed. I was also taking piano lessons at this time to serve the same sort of deluded purpose.
It was like right before college.
Right before college. I'm 18, 19 years old or something. I had a disastrous piano recital. Totally disastrous piano recital.
Oh, that always sucks. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I had one of those in theory class. I was gonna play on a bunch of people's different pieces they had written, and these idiots, they were my friends. They didn't get me the tunes until literally like an hour before. I need these a week before to learn because they were weird. They were like unorthodox and very strange. I got through like 2 out of 5. And then I got to throw it. I was like, man, I can't play this. Like, he just gave it. So a really good sight reader came out and did it. But it was so embarrassing. It was so humiliating. Because I'm a pretty good piano player. I mean, you remember me. I'm a pretty good piano player. Yeah. But I couldn't read it off, and yeah. But anyways, back to you. Sorry to interrupt.
And so I had a disastrous piano recital, and I'm driving home. I don't know where I went, but I was coming home really late at night. Maybe it was 2, 3 in the morning. And I'm flipping through the stations on the radio trying to find something to listen to, And I just happened on WBEZ at the time, and my teacher, my jazz teacher, had been telling me, listen to BEZ, listen to BEZ. And I thought, well, okay, all right, let me put this on and hear what this is. And it was Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. It was So What off the Kind of Blue record.
Sure.
And it was so powerful hearing that. I had to pull my car over because here's this music. It's not fast. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. And it had so much more meaning. And like you said earlier, so much more subtlety, so much more metaphor, that whatever it was at that moment, I was finally ready to hear it. All he's doing, ding, 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 ding. And every once in a while, would just drop a hit on the snare drum or on the kick. And I thought, oh, this is what I'm supposed. And everything changed after that point. Everything changed. And for the next 10 years of my life, that's all I listened to was there's this 10-year period in my life where the rock music and metal and all that played so prominently in my adolescence. I didn't stop liking it, but I put it aside and I voraciously devoured. I wanted to know everything about Duke and Benny Goodman. I want to know everything about Charlie Parker. I want to know everything about Miles and Train and Monk, and I just for a decade absorbed everything I could.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that experience, what you're talking about, that's kind of what happened to me when I went to the academy. Yeah, you really started to appreciate it, because my dad had always like shown me jazz, but I kind of the same way you were talking about you with your dad and the Frank Sinatra type thing. For me, it was like Buddy Rich and like the big band stuff. It's this really intense stuff, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. But I wanted music that was like really emotional for me.
Yeah.
And then I started. It was probably some of the recitals the senior recitals that I went to early on, where I saw the other my classmates playing, tunes that I really liked the tune Question and Answer.
I was
really like that tune.
Wondering about that, if you were around at the time when Tyler Beach played that Matheny tune, and if you were in that band, because I think you were the drummer in that.
No, that was the guy with red dreadlocks. Although I had dreadlocks at one point. That was Mason Gold.
Mason Gold, that's right. Yeah.
I wonder what he's up to these days.
He still plays.
Nice. Yeah. I'd love to. Yeah, tell him to give me a call. He probably wouldn't even remember me, because I think we only were in school together for like two years. But yeah, that real emotional connection you can get with that. Yeah, music that like moves me emotionally. That's the stuff that I like the best. And jazz hadn't really done that for me as much. It is true. If you're listening to jazz, there's nothing like live.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad, because there are a lot of people out there that have probably never seen a live jazz show. No, and it's really unfortunate. And there are fewer and fewer places that exist where you can do that. Right. And it's expensive to go. Even fewer who have seen a good one. Right. Sometimes, you see, there's a lot of jazz groups out there which are, like it's like a side thing they're doing, or it's okay, but it's not great. But to see, like, go to like the Jazz Showcase. Yep. Or maybe, there are all kinds of great clubs, Andy's. Yeah. Or... there's a new one, Winters downtown. That's supposed to be great. I've got to go there. It's supposed to be really nice. I was just there a week ago. I saw we have a new jazz voice teacher at the academy named Alyssa Allgood, and she did a set at Winters that was all the music of Stan Getz and Astrud Gilberto, and it was just killing set. Set. Winters is a great club. Yeah, Astrid, I love that stuff. Have you ever watched the video of her in black and white? With it's just she's just so I don't even know what the word is, but she's just up there just singing, and she's so beautiful, and it's just wonderful. Perfectly embodies that 60s bossa nova spirit. She is that 60s bossa nova, her and Joe Beam. And one of my favorite things to do is to get up early on like a Saturday or a Sunday, cook breakfast, and listen to that music. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the vibe. Some of the greatest music ever made. That's it. Definitely. Yeah. All right. And it's actually really sad, because now it's many people hear that and they think of an elevator. Yeah. And it's like, no, this is actually really good music. Like, Have you ever tried like navigating through the changes of wave?
Oh my God!
Like,
no,
it's a tough tune.
All of that Joe Beam stuff is so sophisticated.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird changes going on.
I'm learning Waters of March on guitar right now, and it's like, what are these alien chords? These I've never seen these because this is not like GCD.
Right.
And I'm just a drummer. I can't get my fingers in this shape.
Sure. Apparently, they were listening to the bebop guys up in New York, and that's where they got the inspiration to start adding those colors.
Okay.
You know, the extra note here and there, sharp 11.
The color, the extensions, the tone.
Yeah. But yeah, that's very cool. And then we talked a little bit about your college experience, but yeah, how about like nowadays? Maybe just name some drummers that have inspired you lately. People you dig, jazz guys, anybody, rock guys.
I want to be careful not to just trot out the people I've loved since I was a kid, and it can be easy to just fall into that pattern of oh my God, when I was a kid I fell in love with Stuart Copeland, and I fell in love with. Later on in my technical phase, I fell in love with Dave Weckl, right?
Sure.
But, so I'll just comment on one right now. There's one drummer I can't get enough of, and it's Nate Smith and Wolfpack. Maybe I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but
I think I know about that group.
It's like a funk group.
Yeah, the guy who works for me, Noah, I think he's into them. Yeah, I've listened to them before. They're cool.
And Nate will have this setup where it's literally a kick, a snare, and a hi-hat. The ones I'm into is he used to play with Dave Holland's band, and there would be a lot of sophisticated groove, odd times and stuff.
Yeah.
But the stuff he's playing now is very tight, crisp funk. And there's nothing that doesn't need to be there. And he doesn't have the big kids, just snare, bass, and hi-hat. Occasionally have a cymbal up there. Or
what album was he on with Dave Holland?
He was on Dave Holland's records, Prime Directive and Not for Nothing.
Oh, okay, I know. Yeah, he's awesome.
And then I don't remember when. I think I might get this wrong, but I think the drummer Brian Blade took over.
Yeah, we've sold him some cymbals over the years.
Yeah, and Brian Blade is great too, but I don't remember where that transition happened.
Yeah,
so
they're both great players.
I'm ready to listen to any note that Nate Smith plays, and then historically, you know what I'm really been getting into lately is I've always loved Steve Smith. I really get into Steve Smith.
He's one of the guys. One of the things I think like there's like a real legitimate like kind of swing feel, and swing is like it's kind of open in a way. A lot of people like argue about what is swing. I think personally, it's a way for many people to improvise together.
Okay. That
is structured yet unstructured, and it's like the time has to be. It doesn't want to like rush a lot or drag a lot.
Right.
But it's loose enough so that many people can collectively improvise, and that's kind of I think how it was built originally. And like a real legitimate swing feel it's kind of a dying breed. Not a lot of people do it anymore.
No, and there's not a lot of music being made that sort of requires or asks for that traditional groove.
Right. Even jazz groups a lot of times it's more fusion. And Steve Smith. I like his jazz feel, and there's so many drummers. I'll hear him like play with a big band. It's like, it's all right, but it's not swinging quite as hard as I'm used to because I'm used to hearing like, like really swinging like Shelly Manne.
Oh yeah, of course.
That guy like he just swings like it's just really tasty, or like Joe Morello, or it's just really that's just what they do. Papa Joe Jones probably the best.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
But Steve Smith, he's cool because. He can really do the swing stuff legit and the old school stuff legit, but then the new stuff he's actually really great at too, and he's real tight and clean.
Yeah.
Which is, being able to do all these things is you don't find too many drummers that can really nail it. Another guy who can do that. He's what's his name? Big into bass drum pedals. Jojo Mayer.
Oh yeah. He's great. He's
he loves
great.
old bass drum pedals. He would apparently come to the New York shop. He'd always scope out all the old interesting pedals and the innovations and
Love that.
Really cool guy. I ran into him at the drum show a couple times.
Okay. Yeah.
But back to you talking about Nate, and then what about you like Ari Honig? You ever listen to any of his stuff?
Little bit. I don't have enough of that in my system.
Yeah, you should check out Ari Honig. He's
Okay.
really cool. He does what I like. He does really, really fast and very quiet, which is really cool. Really fast and quiet. Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to do.
When you can have that control, that sensitivity on the drum kit, but still propel the band forward. I love that. I love that stuff.
They'll do the New York thing. They'll do like traditional standards, but in like 5, or like 7 or 11 or something. And they just do that, but they do it so much that they're really tight at it.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't even sound like they're in an odd time signature. It's just they're just playing.
It's transparent. Yeah, you don't pick up on the. They do it without it creating a sense of struggle.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
There are a couple styles where that's like really traditional. Like there's some Eastern European music where odd time signatures are commonplace.
Right. It's just that's just normal.
Stuff.
That just becomes that's the vocabulary.
And
it's not odd time to them.
It's interesting too because it has a certain swing to it. It's not like 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. It's like 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2. It's almost like in like 4.5.
A lilt. There's a lilt to it.
Some
sure.
of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, the different. The values are placed in other places, right? That it's wrong for us to believe that the Western system that we have of this many notes and a cadence ought to be this many, this structure of harmony, and that rhythm needs to be divided up into these very specific boxes, and that's not the case. Ever so often. You'll hear someone make a comment. They'll hear, they might hear an Indian singer, and they'll say, "Well, they're not in tune." I'll say, "Well, but that's not the point. That's not in a certain genre of music that there's not a value being placed on that as part of the quality of the music. Just the same way that you might say, if you listen to 1950s rock and roll, someone could say, well, those aren't sophisticated rhythms. And it's like, well, yeah, the point was not to play a level of rhythmic sophistication the way it was happening in bebop, right? So,
it's funny because, like the rigidity of Western...
Rigidity is a great word for it.
Yeah, and you were talking about Indian music. There's the raga and the tala.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff.
And the thing about it is they had many different scales, and it's funny. That used to be the case of Western music too. Western music has become more kind of homogenous over time.
Yeah.
It used to be that there was something called, we use the even tempered system now,
right?
Which actually, because you were saying that maybe they're out of tune. Music is math. Music is ratios, tonal, and basically the way it works is the more dissonant it is, the more uncomfortable it feels because your brain can't reconcile the mathematical relationship between two pitches.
Right.
If there's a pattern of, let's say, 5-4 versus 2-1. Your brain is like, whoa, that's weird. And so really consonant intervals would be like an octave. But in the even temperament system, the octave that we have is actually not a pure octave. Right. It's almost an octave. Because in the even temperament system, instead of that being a perfect ratio, the distance between each note is even.
Right.
Which actually makes it so you're always slightly out of key, but you can play in any key.
You can play in any key, exactly right. But you've got to distort each of the individual relationships just enough.
Just a little bit, yeah.
So that the math comes out right on the other end.
It's actually kind of sad because that is the Western style of things, which kind of grew up not during the Baroque era, but a little bit after that. And that has kind of taken the world over.
Right.
But if you go to really traditional culture music, they still use different temperaments. And even if you listen to like Bach, for example, it's called the well-tempered clavier, well temperament. if you're in well temperament, you can only play in a couple keys.
Right.
And to our ear, it actually sounds out of tune. But then you listen to it for a while and you're like, whoa, wait a second. This actually sounds better.
That is in tune.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like perfectly because those intervals.
Yeah.
But then you can only play in, let's say, like, C or something.
Right. Yeah. You can't modulate. You can't play the next piece in F sharp because the key is too distant.
And although in the well tempered, he does do every key, but if you do, and I think even in well temperament, it's not perfectly. The intervals aren't quite perfect, but it's like that's kind of like just in between even temperament and then I think they call it like perfect temperament or something like that. And then there's just temperament.
Just temperament,
which is that's what like horn players do, because if you get like, or violins, if you get like, let's say a string quartet and they're not playing with a fixed pitch instrument, that's just temperament, because they in each one is going to be slightly different from the other.
They can put those thirds wherever they want to put them.
Yeah, and it's just really interesting, and yeah, like when it comes to what is good music versus and yeah, like if you go to 8, I think the real perfect when they really use those ratios correctly was like ancient Greek music.
Okay.
Which we know like nothing about. I was in music history. I was asking them about it because I'm really into like ancient history, and they were just like, well, there's one piece that we have which was written down on this like, and it's like a torn up piece of papyrus that's like,
yeah,
and it's like
who knows what it means.
Right. And I think in the syllabus there was one piece, and it was part of because to them it was theater. Music and theater were kind of the same thing.
Yes. And
the theater people would sing about like the Iliad or something, and it was interesting. But yeah, and in the Greek music you'd have like a drone, and then you just keep hitting the bass note. It's kind of modal.
Okay.
And then you'd have the intervals above it. But those intervals they were playing back then would sound really strange to us.
Right.
And definitely with one of theirs, you couldn't go from key to key.
No.
Well-tempered, I think in well-temperament, like some keys sound better than others. You can play in every key, but you kind of have to write around the system, and that's one of the reasons Bach music sound the way it does, I think.
I'm going to have to go get a little bit more educated, I think.
It's really cool stuff. Yeah, I at Roosevelt, we did a lot of this ancient stuff. It's really, at heart, it's really an opera conservatory, Roosevelt.
Okay.
And so, our theory program when I was there, it was like the third hardest in the country, I think.
I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe that.
I failed.
Oh, no.
I failed once, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think it was the only thing I didn't learn at the academy, which I wish that I would have learned, was really good figured bass. Had I learned that, I would have passed theory 2.
Okay.
But I think I would have also, but at the academy I was missing like a year, because remember I came in the sophomore year, so, and we did a little bit with it, but it wasn't close to as much.
Okay.
I bet you at other colleges I would have passed, but man.
Awesome. It's hard to figure out what the real world is going to look like, and that's
Right.
the struggle we all have. Is oh my God, the world's different than it was 5 years ago.
Right.
And think the kids who are freshmen in high school now, they're going to have jobs they don't even exist yet, and
For sure.
that's the struggle we have to try to figure these things out.
Yeah. And you're with a high school, so your objective is kind of to get people onto college. That's probably part of your objective, right?
It is, but part of that makes us nervous now, because you look at the schools and you think, I don't know that you're really preparing people for the next step. And
people go into debt, and then they get all pissed off about it. And it's like, man, you could have gone to school for anything you wanted, but you chose to go to school for maybe like dance or literature, or, there's the whole like practical, and it's so funny because people are trying to like exercise like they're trying to get more women to go into the base sciences or whatever they're called, the things but sometimes people just don't choose to do that. Like me, I didn't. And sometimes I wish I would have gone to school for something, for history or maybe law or something like that. But it's tough when you really love music. I was ready to become a bohemian. I seriously was. I wanted to like go to New York and and live in, a little roach-infested closet and just kind of play. But then I met Madeline, and that's what changed it all.
Okay.
I was like, all right, I'm happy with her. I want to do something,
I gotta get myself in line here.
Yeah, totally.
It is, but you're absolutely right that it's hard to say to a young person, go rack up $250,000 of debt exploring the limits of your ballet potential, without backing that up with some sort of guidance about what are you going to do with that. I think people should study art. I think they should learn how to make the best art they possibly can. But we, as these institutions, especially colleges, have a responsibility to get them ready for those years after college. It's not enough to say, well, you're a great piano player. Good job.
Right.
How do you make money? I don't know.
Yes.
Teach at college.
So many of my friends, because that's it. But then nowadays, to get a basic college, I'm talking like to get like the lowest entry-level college positions, you have to have a doctorate.
Yeah, and so many of those positions are so part-time that they make it extraordinarily difficult to make it a career.
Yeah, but both me and you are lucky, I think. We've got good gigs.
we have good gigs that...
We work hard too, though. But.
We work hard, absolutely, but we're fortunate to have things we care a lot about that matter.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's winning the lottery. I'm so thrilled every day I get to wake up and do something that I think it matters, and I love it. And there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, man. It definitely, it's like the spice of life, maybe, the arts,
Yeah.
You don't really absolutely need them. You can survive if you eat and have shelter.
Oh, sure, you can survive, but what's the point?
Right, yeah.
Why are you surviving?
Yeah.
I want to survive because later on I'm going to go listen to a great record and I'm going to think, this is why I'm alive, so I can experience this.
For sure. Yeah.
I got to start thinking about hitting the road.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you have anything else you wanted to talk about,
The most important thing I wanted to say, you gave me the opportunity to say, which is to talk about the joy of just being in this space. But I'm gonna say it again because it's important. I am so happy that this exists. I am so happy that you're running a legit drum shop and that someone like me or some other drummer has the opportunity to come in and hang out with people like you or your dad and see this great gear and these great instruments. And I'm very inspired by that. So thank you for existing, and thank you for doing this. It makes the world a better place.
I'm so happy we were able to, give you that experience, make it feel a little bit like a kid in the candy store again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. And then, I wanted to say also, check us out, maxwelldrums.com. Jason Patera here. You can check out the Chicago Academy for the Arts. That's where he's their brave leader, bringing them, one step at a time. I think making improvements constantly. They're doing some really cool stuff out there. So check that out. That's the arts high school that I went to. Helped formulate my my life and helped me end up where I am. And then check us out on Instagram, on Twitter. The podcast will be available pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. Steve Maxwell Drums. So that's all.
Thank you so much, man.